My husband boarded his flight, then my son whispered, "Mom, Dad hired bad men." I heard him on the phone. We hid in the bushes. I screamed in horror when I saw my best friend open our front door. "Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with me today." Before I begin my story, grab a warm cup of tea and get comfortable. I'd love to know what time of day you're watching this video. Please comment M4 morning, A4 afternoon, or E4 evening. Now, let me take you into this story. I dropped my husband off at O'Hare International Airport, thinking it was just another Thursday, just another business trip, just another piece of the perfectly polished life I had spent 10 years maintaining. But the moment Keith walked away, the moment his expensive Italian loafers clicked against the linoleum floor and disappeared into the crowd, my entire reality shattered. The fluorescent lights of the terminal were hurting my eyes that evening. I was tired. It wasn't just physical fatigue, it was that bone-deep exhaustion that comes from carrying the emotional weight of a marriage that felt more like a performance than a partnership. Beside me, my husband, Keith, adjusted the lapels of his impeccable charcoal suit. He checked his reflection in the glass of the departure gate, flashing that winning smile, the one that had charmed investors, closed real estate deals, and, once upon a time, swept me off my feet. 3 days, Meredith, he said, turning to me but looking past me, scanning the room as if expecting an audience. "I'll close the deal in Tokyo and be back by Sunday. You hold down the fort. Make sure the landscapers actually finish the hedges this time, all right?" "Of course," I said, the automatic response of a wife who had learned that silence was easier than conflict. "Safe flight, Keith." He didn't kiss me. He just patted my shoulder, a gesture you might offer a loyal employee. Then he looked down at our 6-year-old son, Toby. Toby was standing too still, his small hand gripping mine so hard his knuckles were white. Keith crouched down, but there was no warmth in his eyes, just that flat, shark-like assessment he used on everyone. "And you," Keith said, pointing a manicured finger at Toby. "Be a man. Don't cause your mother trouble. I don't want to hear about any more nightmares when I get back. Understood?" Toby didn't answer. He didn't even blink. He just stared at his father with a look of terrifying intensity, as if he were memorizing the face of a stranger. "Cat got your tongue?" Keith stood up, checking his watch. "Whatever. I have to go. Love you both." The words were hollow, tossed over his shoulder like a wrapper as he grabbed his leather briefcase and strode toward the TSA checkpoint. We stood there, a mother and son frozen in the stream of travelers rushing to their destinations. I watched him go, feeling a strange mixture of relief that he was leaving and a nagging, unplaceable anxiety. When Keith was finally out of sight, swallowed by the security line, I let out a long breath. "Okay, Tobes," I said, trying to inject some cheer into my voice. "Let's go get some pizza. Maybe we can rent that movie you like." Toby didn't move. His grip on my hand tightened, painfully so. "Toby?" I looked down. He was trembling. Not shivering from cold, but shaking with a vibration that seemed to come from his core. He looked up at me, and his big brown eyes were swimming with tears. "Mama," he whispered. His voice was so small I had to lean down to hear him over the airport announcements. "What is it, sweetie? Do you need to use the bathroom?" "Mama, we can't go back home." I frowned, brushing a curl of hair off his forehead. "What are you talking about? Of course we're going home. It's late." "No!" The urgency in his voice made a passing woman look at us. Toby pulled me closer, standing on his tiptoes to put his mouth right against my ear. "Mama, please. We can't go home. Daddy did something bad." My stomach did a slow, sick flip. "Toby, honey, Daddy is just strict. I know he was mean about the nightmares, but—" "No, Mama. Listen." He was crying now, hot tears wetting my cheek. "This morning. When you were in the garden. I was playing hide and seek. I was under Daddy's big desk in his office. He didn't know I was there. I froze. Keith's office was strictly off limits. If Keith had found him. He was on the phone, Mama. He put it on the speaker because he was fixing his tie. Toby took a ragged breath. He was talking to a man named Marcus. He said, tonight is the night. Tonight is the night for what? I asked, my voice trembling despite myself. He said. Toby choked on a sob. He said, make it clean. Burn it all. I want them gone by the time I land. And the other man said, don't worry, boss. It'll look like an accident. Just make sure the wife and the kid are asleep. The world around me seemed to tilt. The noise of the airport rushed out, leaving only a high-pitched ringing in my ears. My rational mind tried to reject it. It tried to tell me that a 6-year-old misunderstands things, that it was a metaphor, a business deal. Keith was a real estate developer, maybe they were talking about demolishing a building. Toby, baby, are you sure? Maybe Daddy was talking about a house he's selling. Toby let go of my hand and reached into the pocket of his little jeans. He pulled out a silver object and pressed it into my palm. It was a Zippo lighter. Keith's lucky silver Zippo. The one he claimed he had lost 2 days ago. The one he never, ever let anyone touch. Daddy put this on the desk, Toby whispered. He told the man on the phone, I'm leaving my lighter for you. Use it. It's poetic. When Daddy left the room, I took it. I took it so the bad man couldn't use it. Mama, please believe me. I looked at the cold silver metal in my hand. I looked at my son's terrified face. And in that split second, the veil of my marriage didn't just lift, it was ripped away. I believe you, I said, and my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Someone dangerous. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm telling you this story because I survived, but I need you to know how close I came to the edge. If you're listening right now, please comment down below which city or state you're joining us from. It helps me feel connected to you in this darkness. Now, let me tell you what I did next. I didn't run. I didn't scream. Years of walking on eggshells around Keith had trained me to keep my composure even when I was screaming on the inside. I took the lighter, shoved it deep into my purse, and picked Toby up. He was too big to be carried, really, but I needed to feel the weight of him against me. I needed to know he was safe. We are going to play a game, I whispered into his hair as we walked toward the parking garage. It's called the invisible game. We're going to be spies. Toby nodded against my shoulder, his small body relaxing just a fraction because I had taken charge. I buckled him into the backseat of my SUV, checking the locks 3 times. As I climbed into the driver's seat, my hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the steering wheel until my knuckles ached to steady them. Don't go home. That was the command. But where? I pulled out of the airport, merging onto the I-190, but instead of heading north toward our sprawling estate in Lake Forest, I took the exit toward a crowded shopping plaza. I needed to think. I needed to verify. Before I met Keith, before I was the trophy wife in the charcoal suit's shadow, I was Meredith Vance, CPA. I was a forensic accountant. I found missing money for corporations. Keith had made me quit 10 years ago, saying it was embarrassing for his wife to work when he made so much money. He said he wanted to take care of me. I had let him. God, I had let him clip my wings under the guise of protection. I pulled into a dark corner of a Target parking lot and killed the engine. Mama? Toby asked. Give me 2 minutes, baby. Watch out the window for red cars. Count them for me. I pulled out my phone. My fingers flew across the screen, accessing our banking apps. Keith handled the finances. He always said, Don't worry your pretty head about the numbers, Meredith. That's my department. But I still knew the passwords. I knew his birthday, his mother's maiden name, the street he grew up on. I logged into our joint savings account. 0. My breath hitched. That account was supposed to have $50,000 in it. I logged into the checking account. $700. That wouldn't even cover the mortgage for a week. Panic, cold and sharp, started to rise in my throat. I checked Toby's college fund, a separate account my father had set up before he passed away. It was supposed to be untouchable. 0. Oh, God, I breathed. I dug deeper, my old skills awakening like a dormant muscle. I accessed the credit card statements. Cash advances. Tens of thousands of dollars in cash advances at casinos in Vegas, Atlantic City, and clandestine withdrawals in downtown Chicago. Then I saw the life insurance payment. It was a premium deduction from last month. A policy I remembered signing vaguely. Keith had put a stack of papers in front of me after a glass of wine, saying it was just estate planning updates. I clicked on the policy details. Beneficiary, Keith R. Sterling. Amount, $5 million. Effective date, 30 days ago. The puzzle pieces slammed together with the force of a physical blow. The gambling debts. The empty accounts. The new, massive insurance policy. And the trip to Tokyo, the perfect alibi. He wasn't just leaving for business, he was leaving the blast zone. Mama, I counted 10 red cars, Toby said from the back seat. I looked in the rearview mirror at my son. My innocent, observant boy who had just saved our lives. Keith had drained us dry. We were worth more to him dead than alive. In fact, we were worth nothing to him alive, just liabilities, mouths to feed, witnesses to his failure. Rage. It wasn't fear anymore. It was a hot, molten rage that started in my belly and spread to my fingertips. He had underestimated me. He thought he had married a passive doll. He forgot he had married a woman who knew how to follow the money. Good job, Tobes, I said, starting the car. We're going for a ride. I didn't go to the police station. Not yet. Keith played golf with the chief of police. They smoked cigars together at the country club. If I walked in there with the story of a 6-year-old and an empty bank account, Keith would spin it. He would say I was hysterical, off my meds, having a breakdown. He would take Toby. And then, a few weeks later, Toby and I would have a real accident. No. I needed to see it. I needed to be sure. I drove toward our neighborhood, but I didn't take the main entrance. I navigated the back roads, the service streets that wound behind the wealthy estates of the North Shore. The rain had started to fall, a cold, miserable drizzle that blurred the windshield. I parked the car on a bluff that overlooked our cul-de-sac. It was a spot teenagers used for making out, hidden by a thick line of oak trees. From here, I could see the roof of my house. I could see the driveway. I killed the lights. Are we playing hide and seek? Toby whispered. Yes, baby. We're the best hiders in the world. We sat in the dark, watching the house that I had spent years decorating, the home where I thought we were building a future. It looked so peaceful. The porch lights were on. It looked like a sanctuary. And then, headlights cut through the darkness. A dark, nondescript van rolled slowly down the street. It didn't belong in our neighborhood of Mercedes SUVs and Teslas. It was rusted around the wheel wells, the windows tinted pitch black. It slowed as it approached our driveway, then turned in, killing its headlights immediately. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Stay down, Toby. Do not lift your head. I peered over the dashboard, squinting through the rain. 2 figures stepped out of the van. They were dressed in dark clothing, hoods pulled up against the drizzle. One was a large, hulking man, Marcus, presumably. He carried 2 red jerry cans. The sight of them made bile rise in my throat. But it was the second figure that made me freeze. This person was smaller, slender. They walked with a familiar gait, a confident, hip-swaying stride that I had seen 1,000 times. They walked right up to the front door. They didn't break a window. They didn't kick it in. The figure reached into their pocket and pulled out a key. I gasped. Only 3 people had a key to our house. Keith, me, and... The porch light illuminated her face as she pulled down her hood to shake out her wet hair. Blonde hair. A sharp, beautiful profile. Jessica. My best friend. My maid of honor. The woman who had held my hand when I had a miscarriage 3 years ago. The woman who sat at my kitchen island drinking Chardonnay and complaining about her dating life just 2 nights ago. No, I whispered, the word escaping me like a wound. No, Jessica, please. She laughed. I couldn't hear it, but I saw her head throw back. She said something to the man, Marcus, and touched his arm flirtatiously. Then she unlocked my front door and held it open for him to carry the gasoline inside. The betrayal hit me harder than the murder plot. Keith was a narcissist, I had known that deep down. But Jessica? Jessica was my sister in everything but blood. I had fed her. I had loaned her money. I had comforted her. And all this time, she wasn't just my friend. She was the other woman. She had to be. There was no other reason for her to be there, destroying my life with a smile on her face. They were inside for less than 10 minutes. To me, it felt like a lifetime. I imagined them pouring the gasoline over the sofa I had picked out, over the rug Toby played Legos on, over the bed where I slept. They came out quickly. Jessica locked the door behind her, a grotesque habit of civility in the middle of a crime. They ran to the van. As they peeled away, I saw a flicker in the living room window. It started small, a warm orange glow that danced behind the sheer curtains. Then, it grew. It ate the curtains. It climbed the walls. Within seconds, the bay window shattered from the heat, and a ton of fire licked up the side of the house. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down, tears blurring my vision. It was a text from Keith. Just landed in San Francisco for the layover. Miss you and the little man already. Hope you're tucked and safe. Love you, Meredith. The timestamp was 1 minute ago. He was establishing his timeline. He was playing the doting husband at the exact moment he thought I was burning to death. He wanted me to read that text and die thinking he loved me. Or maybe he just wanted the police to see it later on my melted phone. I looked from the phone to the inferno consuming my home. The flames were roaring now, reaching for the second floor, for Toby's bedroom. If I had gone home, if I hadn't believed my son, we would be in there. We would be trapped. I took a picture. I raised my trembling hand and snapped a photo of the burning house, the timestamp on my dash, and the retreating taillights of the van. Mama, I smell smoke, Toby whimpered from the floorboard. I know, baby. I know. Is our house burning? Yes, I said, my voice hardening into steel. But we aren't. We are still here. Sirens wailed in the distance. The neighbors must have called 911. The show was about to begin. The fire trucks would come, the police would come, and Keith would play the devastated widower from a hotel room in Tokyo. But he had made a mistake. A fatal mistake. He left us alive. I put the car in reverse, guiding us silently out of our hiding spot. I couldn't stay to watch. I had nowhere to go, no money, no clothes, and the 2 people I trusted most in the world had just tried to incinerate me. But as I drove away from the orange glow lighting up the night sky, I realized I wasn't entirely destitute. I had the Zippo. I had the photo. And I had a name from a past I had almost forgotten. "Where are we going, Mama?" Toby asked, his voice thick with sleep and fear. "We're going to see an old friend of Grandpa's," I said. "We're going to see Joyce." The drive to the city was a blur of rain and neon lights. Every pair of headlights in my rearview mirror looked like that rusted van. Paranoia is a cold companion. It sat in the passenger seat, whispering that Keith had trackers on the car, that Jessica was calling the police to report us missing, that Marcus was right behind us to finish the job. I couldn't go to a hotel. My credit cards would flag my location to Keith immediately. I couldn't go to my other friends. They were all our friends, part of the country club set that worshipped Keith and tolerated me. Jessica had been the one I trusted. The thought of her made me physically ill, a sharp cramp in my stomach that wouldn't let go. I felt stripped bare. My identity, Meredith the wife, Meredith the hostess, Meredith the suburban mom, had been incinerated back on Oak Creek Drive. All that was left was Meredith the survivor, and she was terrified. "Mama, I'm hungry," Toby whispered. I looked at the digital clock on the dash. 11:45 p.m. "Check the glove box, Toby. There might be a granola bar." He rummaged around and found a stale protein bar I kept for emergencies. Watching him eat it with shaking hands broke me in a way the fire hadn't. He shouldn't be eating stale food in a fleeing car. He should be in his dinosaur pajamas, dreaming of astronauts. "Why did Ms. Jessica do it?" Toby asked suddenly, crumbs on his chin. "She gave me a lollipop last time she came. She said she was my auntie." I gripped the steering wheel. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that auntie wanted his inheritance? That auntie wanted his mother's life? "Ms. Jessica is a bad person who pretended to be good," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Like the wolf in Little Red Riding Hood. "But we saw the zipper on her costume, didn't we?" "Yeah," Toby said softly. "We saw the zipper." I needed help. Real help. Not the polite, shallow help of my social circle. I needed someone who knew who Keith really was. I remembered a day, 5 years ago, shortly before my father died of cancer. He had pulled me close to his hospital bed, his breathing ragged. He had handed me a business card, worn at the edges. "Meredith," he had rasped. "I don't trust him. I never have. Keith is a charming man, but charm is often just the glaze on a rotten donut. If you ever find yourself in a corner, if you ever need someone who can fight dirty for you, you call Joyce." Joyce Harper. She was my father's attorney, but she was more than that. She was his confidant, his college friend, the woman who I suspected had been the true love of his life, though they never married. I hadn't spoken to her since the funeral. Keith hated her. He called her that old witch and had insisted we move all our legal matters to his corporate firm. I prayed she still lived in the same brownstone in the Gold Coast. I parked the car 3 blocks away from her address, just in case. I pulled my hood up, grabbed Toby, and we walked. The wind off Lake Michigan was brutal, cutting through my thin coat. We looked like vagrants. Maybe we were. I stood in front of the heavy oak door and rang the bell. Once. Twice. "Please be home. Please be alive." The intercom crackled. "It's midnight. Unless you're selling Girl Scout cookies made of gold, go away." The voice was raspy, dry, and distinctly Joyce. I almost sobbed with relief. "Joyce," I said into the speaker. "It's Meredith. Langston's daughter." Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then, the buzz of the lock releasing. When the door opened, Joyce was standing there in a silk robe, a cigarette in one hand and a glass of scotch in the other. She looked older than I remembered, her silver hair was chopped short, her face lined with a roadmap of fierce battles, but her eyes were the same. Sharp. Intelligent. Unyielding. She looked at me, soaking wet. She looked at Toby, shivering against my leg. She didn't ask how are you? She didn't ask what happened? She took one look at my eyes and stepped back. Get in, she commanded. And don't drip on the Persian rug. We stepped into the warmth of her foyer, which smelled of old books and expensive tobacco. Joyce locked the door, throwing the deadbolt with a definitive thud. You look like hell, Meredith, she said, handing her scotch to me without asking. Drink. The boy can have hot chocolate. Joyce, I started, my voice cracking. Keith, he finally tried it, didn't he? Joyce said calmly, leading us into the living room. I stopped. What? Joyce turned, her expression grim. Your father and I had a bet. He bet Keith would clean you out and leave within 7 years. I bet 10. Looks like I won. She paused, her eyes softening just a fraction. I've been waiting for this knock on my door for a decade, honey. Sit down. Tell me everything. Sitting in Joyce's library, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, I told her everything. I told her about the airport, the whisper, the empty bank accounts, the van, and Jessica. When I got to the part about Jessica opening the door, Joyce didn't look surprised. She just let out a cynical grunt and lit another cigarette. The best friend, Joyce muttered, exhaling a plume of smoke. Classic. Men like Keith don't have the imagination to cheat with a stranger. They like the efficiency of ruining 2 relationships at once. Toby had fallen asleep on the leather sofa, clutching a mug of cocoa. He looked so small, so fragile. I wanted to scream at the unfairness of it all. Why, Joyce? I asked, the scotch burning my throat. Why kill us? Why not just divorce me? I would have given him the house. I would have given him whatever he wanted just to get away. Joyce walked over to a massive filing cabinet in the corner of the room. She spun the combination dial, left, right, left, and pulled open a heavy drawer. She thumbed through the files until she found a thick manila envelope labeled Vance Sterling. She tossed it onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy slap. You wouldn't have given him what he needed, Meredith. Because you couldn't. What do you mean? The prenup, Joyce said. The one your father made Keith sign. The one you probably didn't even read because you were too busy picking out flower arrangements for the wedding. I felt a flush of shame. I trusted him. I know. Langston knew that too. That's why he made the prenup ironclad. Joyce opened the file. Clause 4, Section B, in the event of a divorce, regardless of fault, Keith Sterling receives 0% of the Vance family trust, 0% of the inherited real estate, and 0 alimony if the marriage lasts less than 15 years. I stared at the document. I didn't know it was that harsh. Your father knew Keith was a gold digger, Joyce said bluntly. He wanted to make sure Keith was worth more to you married than divorced. But Keith flipped the script. He realized you were worth more to him dead. Joyce pulled out another document. It was a background check. A recent one. I've kept tabs on him, Joyce admitted. Call it a hobby. Your husband isn't just broke, Meredith. He's underwater. He owes $2 million to a loan shark syndicate out of Detroit. The kind of people who don't send overdue notices, they send guys with baseball bats. $2 million? I gasped. But he makes nothing, Joyce corrected. His real estate firm is a shell. It's been bleeding money for 3 years. He's been living off your trust fund dividends, but he can't touch the principal. Not unless I die, I finished the sentence. Bingo. Joyce leaned forward, her eyes hard. If you die, the trust dissolves and passes to the next of kin. That's you, and then Toby. But if Toby dies too? Then it all goes to Keith, I whispered, feeling sick. And let's not forget the cherry on top, Joyce said, pulling up a printout of an insurance policy. The $5 million accidental death policy. He forged your signature on the rider, didn't he? I nodded. So, here's the math, Joyce said, ticking off on her fingers. He owes $2 million. He kills you and the boy. He gets the trust principal, about $4 million, plus the $5 million insurance. He pays off the sharks, keeps the mistress, and walks away with $7 million and a sob story that makes him the most eligible bachelor in Chicago. It was monstrous. It was calculated. It was a business transaction. My life, my son's life, was just a line item on a balance sheet to fix his mistakes. He's going to get away with it, I said, my voice trembling. The house is gone. The evidence is burned. He has an alibi. He has a sloppy alibi, Joyce corrected. And he has an arrogant mistress. And most importantly, he has a wife who is a CPA and a lawyer who hates his guts. Joyce poured me another drink. But we have a problem, Meredith. We can't go to the police yet. If we go now, it's your word against his. He'll claim you're mentally unstable. He's probably already planted seeds about that with your doctor, hasn't he? I froze. He told our family doctor I was having mood swings last month. He made me take sleeping pills. See? Setting the stage for the unstable wife who accidentally left the gas on. Joyce shook her head. If we surface now, he wins. We need proof. Irrefutable, undeniable proof that links him to the fire. Everything is burned, Joyce. What proof could there be? Joyce looked at Toby sleeping on the sofa. Then she looked at me. You said Toby heard him on the phone. You said Toby took a lighter. That's a start. But we need more. We need to know exactly how stupid Keith was. Did he write it down? Did he text the goons? We need his digital footprint. I don't have his phone, I said. He took it to Tokyo. He has a burner, a small voice said. We both jumped. Toby was awake, sitting up, rubbing his eyes. What did you say, honey? I asked. Daddy has a secret phone, Toby said clearly. A black one. Not his shiny one. He keeps it in his special hiding spot. Where? I asked, my heart pounding. In the safe? The safe will be melted. No, Toby shook his head. Under the floor. In the office. Under the rug where the bear is. One of the wood pieces comes up. I saw him put it there. I looked at Joyce. A slow, predatory smile spread across her face. Well, Joyce said. Looks like we're going back to the scene of the crime. While Joyce made plans and Toby drifted back to sleep, I sat in the armchair and let the ghosts of the last decade wash over me. How had I gotten here? How had the sharp, ambitious woman who graduated top of her class in accounting become a hunted fugitive in an oversized wool blanket? It hadn't happened overnight. It was the boiling frog syndrome. Keith had turned up the heat so slowly I didn't realize I was dying until I was already cooked. I remembered our first date. He was charming, attentive, treating me like a queen. He listened to me talk about forensic audits as if it were the most fascinating subject on earth. You're so smart, he had said, staring into my eyes over candlelight. I need a woman who can challenge me. That was the first lie. He didn't want a challenge, he wanted a mirror. The first year of marriage was bliss, or so I thought. Then came the suggestions. Babe, why are you working such late hours during tax season? You look exhausted. It kills me to see you tired. Why don't you take a break? We don't need the money. It sounded like love. It sounded like care. So I quit the firm. Then came the isolation. I don't like how Sarah talks to you. She's jealous of our lifestyle. She brings negative energy into our home. Maybe we should skip her birthday. So I stopped seeing Sarah. Then Mark. Then my cousins. Then came the financial blindness. Why are you bothering with the bills, Meredith? You're terrible at remembering passwords. Let me handle it. You just enjoy the house. Whenever I asked about our accounts, he would sigh, a sound of deep, suffering patience. You're being paranoid again, Meredith. Do you not trust me? After everything I do for us? And I would apologize. I would apologize for asking where our money was going. And then there was Jessica. She had entered our lives 3 years ago as the new neighbor. She was bubbly, single, and just loved my decorating style. She became my shadow. When Keith was working late, Jessica was there with a bottle of wine. When I cried because Keith forgot our anniversary, Jessica was there to say, "Men are just like that, honey. At least he provides." You're so lucky. I remembered a dinner party 6 months ago. I had tried to voice an opinion on the housing market, my field of expertise. Keith had laughed, a cold, sharp sound. Oh, honey, leave the business talk to the adults. You just worry about your Pilates class. The table had gone silent. I had looked at Jessica, expecting support. She had just smirked into her wineglass and said, "He's just teasing, Mir. Don't be so sensitive." I realized now that look wasn't amusement. It was ownership. She was looking at my husband, my house, my life, and measuring it for drapes. They were probably playing footsie under the table while I apologized for being too sensitive. The gaslighting had been a masterpiece. He made me question my memory, my sanity, my worth. He convinced me I was a burden he graciously carried. I looked at my hands. No ring. I had taken it off in the car. I wasn't a burden. I was the bank. I was the golden goose. And when the goose started asking questions, they decided to have roast duck. Meredith. Joyce's voice snapped me back to the present. She was holding a laptop. I just checked the police scanner archives, she said. The fire department put the blaze out 2 hours ago. They've labeled it suspicious, but the site is currently unsecured until the arson investigator arrives at dawn. Unsecured? It means there's no police tape yet. No guard. Just a burnt shell. Joyce looked at her watch. It's 3 a.m. If that phone is under the floorboards, and if the floor didn't burn through, we have a window of about 2 hours before the sun comes up. I can't go back there, I whispered. What if they are watching? Keith is in the air. Or landing. He won't be there. And the goons? They're probably celebrating. Joyce handed me a flashlight and a crowbar. You want to clear your name? You want to save your son? You have to stop being the victim, Meredith. You have to go be the auditor. I looked at the crowbar. It was heavy, cold steel. I stood up. I thought of Toby's face when he handed me the lighter. I thought of Jessica unlocking my door. I'll drive, I said. We decided Toby was safer at Joyce's. Joyce's housekeeper, a formidable woman named Marta who looked like she could wrestle a bear, promised to sit by him with a shotgun if necessary. Joyce and I took her car, a nondescript sedan that wouldn't attract attention. As we drove back toward the suburbs, the silence was heavy. Joyce broke it by turning on the local news radio. Breaking news out of Lake Forest tonight. A massive fire has engulfed a multi-million-dollar residence on Oak Creek Drive. Firefighters are battling the blaze, but fears are growing for the family believed to be inside. Turn it off, I said. No, Joyce said. Listen. Know your enemy. The reporter continued. We have a statement from the homeowner, Keith Sterling, who was reached by phone upon landing in Tokyo. He is reportedly devastated and flying back immediately. Devastated. I could imagine the performance. We arrived at the neighborhood around 3:45 a.m. The smell hit us first. Wet ash. Burnt plastic. That acrid, chemical stench of a life destroyed. Joyce parked 2 streets over. We walked through the backyards, moving like shadows. I knew these yards. I knew which neighbors had dogs, which ones had motion sensor lights. When my house came into view, I stopped. I had to put a hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. It was gone. The roof had collapsed on the left side, the side with the master bedroom. The beautiful colonial facade was blackened, the windows gaping like empty eye sockets. Smoke still curled lazily from the debris. "The office," Joyce whispered. "Which side?" "Right side. 2nd floor. Above the garage." I looked. The garage was intact. The office floor, it looked like it was still there. The fire had raged hottest in the living quarters and bedrooms. The office, separated by a fire door I had insisted on years ago for tax purposes, might have survived. "We have to climb," Joyce assessed, looking at the trellis that led up to the balcony. "You go. I'll watch the street." I wasn't an athlete. I was a suburban mom who did yoga occasionally. But adrenaline is a powerful drug. I scaled that trellis with a strength I didn't know I possessed. The wood was slick with rain and soot, staining my hands black. I pulled myself over the railing of the office balcony. The glass door was shattered. I stepped through the frame, glass crunching softly under my boots. The office was a disaster. The walls were scorched, the expensive leather chair melted into a grotesque shape. But the floor was solid. "Under the rug where the bear is," Toby had said. The rug was gone, burned away. But I saw the outline on the floor. A discoloration where the rug had been. I dropped to my knees, shining the flashlight. The hardwood planks were warped from the heat and water, but I found the loose one. It was under the spot where Keith's desk used to sit. I jammed the crowbar into the gap. Creak. The sound was deafening in the silence. I pushed harder. The wood splintered and popped up. I shone the light into the cavity between the joists. There was a metal lockbox. Not a big safe, just a small, fire-resistant cash box. My heart hammered. I grabbed it. It was hot to the touch, but intact. I was about to turn around when I heard it. Tires on gravel. I froze. I clicked off my flashlight. From the shattered balcony door, I looked down at the street. A car had pulled up right in front of the house. Not a police car. It was a sleek, red convertible. Jessica's car. She got out. She wasn't wearing her black hoodie anymore. She was wearing a trench coat and sunglasses? At 4 a.m.? She walked right up to the police tape that had been hastily strung up. She stood there, staring at the ruins of my house. And then, she did something that chilled my blood. She took a selfie. She posed with the burnt remains of my life, making a sad pouty face, and snapped a picture. Probably for Instagram. #tragedy #RIP bestie. Then, another car pulled up. A black sedan. The window rolled down. "Did you find it?" a male voice asked. "Marcus." "No," Jessica hissed, dropping the act. "The fire is too hot. We can't go in there." "The boss is freaking out," Marcus said. "The kid took the Zippo. If they find that Zippo on a body, it's fine. But if they don't find the bodies..." "They'll find the bodies," Jessica snapped. I saw them inside. I saw the lights go on in the kitchen right before we lit it. They were trapped. I crouched lower, clutching the lockbox. They thought we were dead. They were just here to confirm the kill. Let's go, Marcus said. Cops will be back at dawn. Jessica took one last look at the house, right at the window where I was hiding. For a second, I thought she saw me. I held my breath, my lungs burning. Then she turned, flipped her hair, and got back in her car. As they drove away, I exhaled. I looked at the lockbox in my hands. You want proof? I whispered to the darkness. I got it. I scrambled down the trellis, the lockbox tucked inside my jacket. Joyce was waiting in the bushes, holding a tire iron like a baseball bat. I saw them, she whispered. The audacity of that woman. We have to go. Now. We drove back to the city in silence, the weight of the metal box sitting on my lap like a balm. Back at Joyce's brownstone, the sun was starting to crest over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in colors that felt too cheerful for the nightmare we were living. We went into the kitchen. Marta had coffee waiting. Is the boy okay? I asked. Sleeping like an angel, Marta said, crossing herself. God protect him. Joyce cleared the kitchen table. Open it. The box was locked, but Joyce didn't bother with finesse. She took a hammer and a screwdriver and popped the latch with a violent crack. Inside, there was a stack of cash, bands of $100 bills, maybe 20,000 in total. There were passports, fake ones. One for Keith, one for a woman named Monica, Jessica's alias, I assumed. And there was the black burner phone. Please tell me it's not passcode locked, I prayed. Joyce picked it up. She pressed the side button. The screen lit up. Enter passcode. Damn it, Joyce swore. Wait, I said. Keith is a narcissist. He thinks he's a genius, but he's lazy. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried Jessica's birthday. Incorrect. I tried the date he founded his company. Incorrect. Think, Meredith, Joyce urged. What matters to him? Money? Himself? I looked at the phone. 4 digits. I remembered the day he bought his Porsche. He was more excited about that car than he was about Toby's birth. He had made a custom license plate. KRS-1. Try 5771, I said. KRS-1 on the keypad. Joyce typed it in. The phone unlocked. We both let out a breath we didn't know we were holding. Joyce immediately went to the messages. It was a treasure trove of filth. There were texts to Marcus going back 3 months. October 12th, she's asking questions about the accounts again. Shut her up. November 1st, need it done before the 15th, premium is paid. Yesterday, remember, use the Zippo. I wanted to look like she did it to herself. Drunk mom drops lighter. Sad story. And then the texts with Jessica. Jessica, I can't wait to be Mrs. Sterling. That house is going to look so much better when I redecorate. Keith, just a few more days, babe. Once the insurance clears, we are on a beach in Fiji. Jessica, did you make sure the kid is there? We can't leave loose ends. Keith, yeah. He's home. It's a package deal. Pity, but necessary. I read that last text, pity, but necessary, and something inside me broke and reformed into something harder than diamond. He talked about our son like he was collateral damage. Like he was a piece of furniture to be discarded. We have him, Joyce said, her voice grim. This is conspiracy to commit murder. Premeditated. Aggravated. It's enough to put him away for life, I said. Yes. But we have to be careful how we deliver it. If we just hand this to the cops, his lawyers will claim we planted it. Or that the phone was stolen. We need to catch him in the act. How? Joyce looked at me. He thinks you're dead. He's flying back right now to play the grieving widower. Imagine his surprise if the dead wife calls him. You want me to call him? No, Joyce said. I want you to text him. From this phone. Send him a picture. A picture of what? Joyce pulled the Zippo lighter out of my purse. She placed it on the table next to the black phone. Send him a picture of the lighter. And text him 2 words, you missed. I looked at the lighter. It was the symbol of his arrogance. He thought he could burn us out of existence and leave his signature on the ashes. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I picked up the burner phone. I snapped the photo. He lands in 3 hours, I said. When he turns his phone on, this will be the first thing he sees. He's going to panic, Joyce said. He's going to come looking for you. Or he's going to run. Let him come, I said. I'm done hiding. I hit send. Now, the game changed. I wasn't the prey anymore. I was the hunter. We sat in Joyce's kitchen, the burner phone sitting on the marble island like a coiled snake waiting to strike. My heart was thumping a rhythm against my ribs, thud, 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 a countdown. I knew Keith's flight schedule better than I knew my own blood type. Flight JL010 from Tokyo. It had touchdown 40 minutes ago. He would be clearing customs right about now. The phone didn't ring. It vibrated. A long, angry buzz that rattled against the stone countertop. I flinched. Even knowing it was coming, the physical reaction to his presence, even digitally, was visceral. It was Pavlovian. I had been trained to jump when he called. Don't answer, Joyce commanded, lighting a fresh cigarette with hands that were steady as rock. Let him sweat. Let him imagine. The screen lit up with his name, or rather, the name saved in the burner phone, the architect. How fitting. He thought he was designing the world, moving us around like little pawns in a model home. The call went to voicemail. Immediately, it rang again. And again. 7 times in 3 minutes. Then, the text started flooding in. Meredith? Is that you? Who has this phone? This isn't funny. Where are you? I'm calling the police. I laughed. It was a dry, brittle sound that scraped my throat. He's calling the police? The man who just hired a hitman is threatening to call the cops? He's panicking, Joyce said, exhaling smoke. He's trying to figure out if you're alive, if you're hurt, or if someone found the phone and is blackmailing him. Uncertainty is our best weapon right now. Then, a new text popped up. This one was different. Babe, please. I'm so scared. I heard about the fire. The news says, oh God, Meredith, please tell me you aren't inside. Please tell me you and Toby are safe. I'm shaking. I'm at the airport. I don't know what to do. Look at that, I whispered, showing Joyce the screen. He switches masks so fast. 1 second he's the angry boss, the next he's the terrified husband. He thinks I might be alive but oblivious. He thinks he can still spin this. He's testing the waters, Joyce agreed. He wants to see if you know he did it. If you reply with fear, he'll come rescue you and finish the job. If you reply with anger, he knows the jig is up. So what do I do? We reel him in, Joyce said. We need him in a controlled environment. We need a confession. My eyes drifted to the window. The sun was fully up now, casting harsh light on the day. My life as Mrs. Keith Sterling was over. The country club dinners, the silent compliance, the fear of upsetting him, it was all ash. I looked at the Zippo lighter sitting next to the phone. I picked up the device. My thumbs hovered over the keypad. I know everything, Keith. I have the ledger. I have the texts. I have the lighter. I didn't send it. That was too much. If I backed him into a corner too hard, he might run. He might hop on the next plane to a non-extradition country with whatever cash he had left. I needed him here. I needed him close enough to touch. Close enough to handcuff. I deleted the text and typed a new one. We need to talk. Face to face. Alone. His reply was instantaneous. Thank God you're alive. Yes. Yes, of course. Tell me where you are. I'll come get you. I'll take care of everything. I love you so much, Meredith. The I love you made bile rise in my throat. It was the same I love you he said when he bought me the diamond earrings after he drained my savings account. It was a currency he printed, worthless and counterfeit. No, I typed back. Not where I am. Public place. Millennium Park. The Cloud Gate. Noon. Come alone. If I see anyone else, I go straight to the FBI with this phone. There was a pause. The 3 little dots danced on the screen, representing him thinking, calculating, weighing his odds. He was probably signaling Jessica right now. He was probably checking to see if Marcus could get a clear shot in a crowded park. Okay, he finally replied. Noon. Just you and me. Please bring the phone. And the lighter. We need to destroy them so the police don't get the wrong idea. I can explain everything. He thinks he can talk his way out of it, I said, putting the phone down. He thinks he can charm me one last time. He's a narcissist, Joyce said, crushing her cigarette. He believes he's the smartest person in the room. He believes you're weak. He's counting on it. Joyce stood up and smoothed her silk robe. Go shower, Meredith. Wash the soot off. Put on some of my clothes. You need to look like a warrior, not a victim. I'm going to make a phone call. To who? To the one man in the Chicago Police Department who hates corruption as much as I do. Detective Miller. It's time to bring in the cavalry. I walked to the bathroom, catching my reflection in the hallway mirror. My face was smudged with black ash. My hair was wild. But my eyes were different. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just Meredith anymore. I was the storm that was coming for Keith Sterling. Detective David Miller was a man who looked like he was carved out of granite and exhausted patience. He met us not at the precinct, but in the back room of a diner on the outskirts of the city. Joyce insisted on it. Precincts have ears, she had said. And Keith has friends in high places. Miller sat opposite me, nursing a black coffee. He listened without interrupting as I laid it all out. The flight. The whisper. The van. Jessica. The fire. When I finished, he didn't say anything for a long moment. He just looked at the burner phone and the Zippo lighter sitting on the Formica table. You realize, Miller said, his voice gravelly, that if you go to the station right now, we have enough for probable cause? We can pick him up. And then what? I asked, leaning forward. He posts bail. He hires a dream team of lawyers. He claims the phone was stolen, the texts were faked, the ledger is a plant. He claims I'm a hysterical wife off her meds, which he has already seeded in my medical files. He drags this out for years while he hides his assets and terrorizes my son. Miller nodded slowly. You know the system. I was a forensic accountant, detective. I know how men like Keith operate. They don't go down because of the crime, they go down because of the cover-up. They go down when they think they've won. "So you want the wire," Miller said. It wasn't a question. "I want him to say it," I said. "I want a jury to hear his voice. I want him to look me in the eye and admit he tried to burn my son alive for $5 million. I want there to be zero doubt." Miller looked at Joyce. "You're okay with this, counselor? Putting a civilian in the line of fire?" "Meredith isn't a civilian anymore," Joyce said, her voice sharp. "She's the only asset we have. And frankly, David, she's got more guts than half your squad." Miller sighed and scrubbed a hand over his face. "All right. But we do this my way. Millennium Park is a nightmare for surveillance, too many tourists, too many sightlines. We'll have plainclothes officers everywhere. I'll have a sniper on the overpass. If he so much as twitches wrong, we take him." "And Jessica?" I asked. "We have a unit sitting on her apartment right now," Miller revealed. "We saw her come home early this morning. She's pacing. Making calls. She's packing a bag. She's trying to run," I said. "Let her try," Miller smirked, a dangerous glint in his eye. "We're just waiting for the signal. Once we get Keith, we scoop her up. Conspiracy, arson, attempted murder. She's looking at 25 to life." Knowing Jessica was cornered gave me a surge of grim satisfaction. I remembered how she used to hold Toby when he was a baby, cooing at him while secretly plotting to erase him. The rage that flared in my chest was hot enough to burn down the city. Miller opened a metal briefcase. Inside was a small black device and a roll of adhesive tape. "The wire," he said. "It's small, undetectable unless he pats you down. Are you ready for this?" I stood up. I was wearing a black trench coat Joyce had lent me. It was expensive, structured, armor-like. Underneath, I wore a simple white blouse. "Tape me up," I said. The drive to the park was silent. I sat in the back of Miller's unmarked car, watching the Chicago skyline approach. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining off the lake. People were walking their dogs, drinking lattes, living their normal lives. They had no idea that a monster was walking among them. I thought about Toby, safe back at Joyce's house with Marta. I thought about the way he used to look at his father, with awe, and then with fear. Keith had stolen my son's childhood. He had stolen his sense of safety. For that, I would burn Keith's world to the ground. Not with gasoline, but with the truth. My phone buzzed. A text from Keith to my old number, which I had turned back on for this. "I'm here. Near the bean. I'm waiting, babe. Please hurry. Babe." The word felt like a slur. "We're 3 minutes out," Miller said from the front seat. "Check your earpiece." I touched the tiny bud in my ear. "I can hear you." "Remember, Meredith," Miller said, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. "Don't let him touch you. Don't let him move you to a secondary location. Get the admission and give the code phrase." "The code phrase is 'it's over,'" I repeated. "Good. You got this." The car stopped. I opened the door and stepped out into the biting wind. The park was ahead of me, bustling with tourists. And there, standing beneath the reflective curve of the Cloud Gate sculpture, was my husband. He looked tired. His suit was rumpled. He was pacing, checking his watch. To anyone else, he looked like a worried businessman. To me, he looked like a predator sensing a trap but too hungry to turn away. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the cold air. Time to act. Walking toward him felt like walking underwater. Every step was heavy, deliberate. The noise of the city, the distant sirens, the chatter of tourists, the laughter of children, faded into a dull hum. My entire universe narrowed down to the man in the charcoal suit. He saw me when I was 50 feet away. His head snapped up. For a split second, the mask slipped. I saw the flash of pure, unadulterated hatred in his eyes. It was a look that said, "Why won't you just die?" But then, the mask slid back into place. His shoulders dropped. His face crumpled into a performance of relief. He started to run toward me. "Meredith," he shouted, his voice cracking theatrically. "Oh my God, Meredith!" He opened his arms, aiming to envelop me in a hug. A hug that would pin my arms to my sides. A hug that would let him feel the wire taped to my chest. "Stop!" I commanded, holding up a hand. "Stay right there, Keith." He skidded to a halt, looking confused. "Babe? What? Why?" "I'm just so happy you're safe. Come here. Let me hold you." "Don't take another step," I said, my voice steady, amplified by the microphone taped between my breasts. I knew Detective Miller and a van full of officers were listening to every breath. "I mean it, Keith. Stay back." Okay. He held up his hands in a gesture of surrender. He looked around nervously, checking to see if people were watching. They were. A couple taking a selfie near the sculpture glanced at us. "Meredith, people are staring. Let's go somewhere private. My car is just over there. We can go to a hotel, get you cleaned up." "We aren't going anywhere," I said. "We talk here. In the open." "Here?" He laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. "Babe, we can't talk about family matters in front of tourists. Please. You're not making sense. You're in shock." "I've never been more clear-headed in my life," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out the black burner phone. I held it up. Keith's eyes locked onto it. The hunger returned. "Give me that," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "Meredith, give me the phone. And the lighter. You don't know what you're messing with. Those things, they're dangerous." "Why?" I asked. "Because they prove you hired Marcus? Because they prove you paid Jessica to open the door?" He flinched. The name Jessica hit him like a physical slap. He looked around wildly again. "Keep your voice down," he hissed, stepping closer. "You're delusional. The fire, it was an accident. I was in Tokyo. I have witnesses. I saw them, Keith." I lied, or told a half-truth. "I saw Jessica unlock the door. I saw Marcus pour the gas. And I read the texts where you told them to make sure Toby was inside." At the mention of Toby, his face twisted. "Where is he?" Keith demanded. "Where is the boy?" "Safe. Far away from you." "You kidnapped my son?" He was trying to flip the script, trying to find an angle where he was the victim. "I'll call the cops. I'll tell them you're mentally unstable and you kidnapped him." "Call them," I challenged. "Go ahead. Dial 911 right now. Tell them to come see the ledger I found under the floorboards." That was the nail in the coffin. The ledger. He knew exactly what was in there. The illegal transfers. The laundering. The debts to the syndicate. Keith stopped acting. His posture changed. The slouch of the worried husband vanished, replaced by the rigid tension of a cornered animal. He took a step toward me, and this time, there was no love in his eyes. Only cold, hard calculation. "You stupid bitch," he whispered. The microphone caught it perfectly. "You think you're smart? You think you can blackmail me? I don't want your money, Keith. I know you don't have any. I have enough to make you disappear," he snarled. "You should have just died in the house. It would have been quick. Painless. I was giving you a mercy, Meredith. A mercy. Mercy? I repeated, making sure the word hung in the air. Burning your wife and child alive is mercy? It was the only way, he snapped, his voice rising. Do you have any idea what kind of pressure I'm under? The people I owe, they don't just kill you. They torture you. I was saving you from them. I was going to use the insurance money to start over. For us. Well, for me. And Jessica. He was confessing. He was unraveling. So you admit it, I said. You hired Marcus to set the fire. Of course I hired him. Who else would do it? You think I'd get my hands dirty? He scoffed, stepping closer, invading my personal space. Now give me the phone. Give it to me, or I swear to God, Meredith, I will finish what the fire didn't. He reached into his jacket pocket. I saw the glint of something. Not a gun. A knife. A box cutter. Detective! I screamed. It's over. The reaction was instantaneous. One moment, Keith was lunging at me, the box cutter gleaming in the midday sun. The next, the park erupted. Police! Drop the weapon! Get on the ground! The tourists who had been taking selfies, the couple near the sculpture, the guy eating a hot dog, suddenly pulled badges and weapons. Detective Miller materialized from behind a pillar, his gun drawn and leveled at Keith's chest. Keith froze. His eyes darted left, right, looking for an exit. But there was none. He was surrounded by a sea of blue jackets and drawn firearms. For a second, I thought he would surrender. I thought the coward in him would buckle. But Keith was cornered, and his narcissism wouldn't let him accept defeat. He looked at me, his eyes wide with betrayal. You set me up, he screamed. You treacherous. He grabbed me. It happened so fast. He yanked me by the collar of the trench coat, spinning me around. I felt the cold blade of the box cutter press against my throat. Back off! Keith shrieked, his voice breaking into a terrified falsetto. Back off or I cut her. I swear I'll do it. Keith, drop it. Miller roared, stepping forward. There's nowhere to go. I need a car. Keith yelled, dragging me backward. I want a car and a flight out of here. Now. I could smell him, sweat, expensive cologne, and fear. His heart was hammering against my back like a jackhammer. The blade dug into my skin, just enough to sting. A warm trickle of blood slid down my neck. You're making it worse, Keith, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I was just disgusted. Shut up, he screamed in my ear. This is your fault. All of this is your fault. If you had just been a good wife, if you had just stayed asleep. I was never asleep, I said. I was just waiting. And then, I moved. In the self-defense class I had taken secretly 2 years ago, telling Keith it was Pilates, the instructor had taught us one thing: if they hold you from behind, go for the instep. Hard. I lifted my heel and stomped down with all my weight onto Keith's foot. I felt something crunch. He howled in pain. His grip loosened for a fraction of a second. I dropped my weight, twisting out of his hold, and drove my elbow back into his ribs. It wasn't graceful, but it was effective. He stumbled back, the knife waving wildly in the air. Pop. A sound like a cork popping, but louder. Keith convulsed. His body went rigid, his eyes rolling back in his head. Detective Miller had fired his taser. Keith fell. He hit the concrete face first with a sickening smack. He twitched on the ground, the electrical current overriding his muscles, turning the man who thought he was a god into a heap of shaking limbs. Miller was on him in a second. He planted a knee in Keith's back and slapped the cuffs on. Keith Sterling, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and arson, Miller recited, his voice the sweetest sound I had ever heard. I stood there, panting, clutching my throat where the cut was. I looked down at him. Keith was groaning, his face pressed against the dirty pavement. He looked up at me, dirt and blood on his cheek. Meredith, he wheezed. Meredith, help me. I stepped closer. I looked down at him from my height, blocking the sun. Help you? I asked. Sorry, Keith. That's not in my job description anymore. I turned my back on him and walked toward Detective Miller. Looking at the man who had controlled my every move for 10 years now lying handcuffed in the dirt, I realized the war was finally won. But the battle to rebuild was just beginning. If you have listened this far, please, take a moment to hit that like button and comment the number 1 down below. Let me know you're standing with me. Let me know you believe that survivors can win. Your support means the world to me, and knowing you're here gives me the strength to tell you the rest, because you won't believe what happened to Jessica. Comment 1 now, and let's finish this together. While Keith was being shoved into the back of a squad car, screaming about his rights and demanding his lawyer, Detective Miller's radio crackled. Team 2, status? Miller barked into his shoulder mic. Target acquired, the voice on the radio replied. Suspect Jessica Vance, Jessica Thorne, was apprehended attempting to board a flight to Cabo at O'Hare. She had $50,000 in cash in her carry-on. I let out a breath that felt like it had been held for 10 years. They got her, Miller confirmed, looking at me. She tried to run. Of course she did, I said. Rats always leave the sinking ship. Miller drove me to the precinct. I needed to give my official statement, hand over the evidence, and get my neck bandaged. But more than that, I needed to see her. I needed to see the woman who had smiled in my face while holding the knife behind her back. They had Jessica in interrogation room B. Miller let me watch through the one-way mirror. She didn't look like the glamorous best friend anymore. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was a mess, and she was wearing handcuffs that looked too big for her delicate wrists. She was crying, ugly, heaving sobs. It wasn't my idea, she wailed to the detective interviewing her. Keith forced me. He said he would kill me if I didn't help him. I'm a victim here. I snorted. Liar, I whispered against the glass. You unlocked the door. You laughed. She's singing like a canary, Miller said, standing beside me. She's throwing Keith under the bus so fast I think she broke the speed limit. She admitted to the affair. She admitted to the plan. She even told us where Keith hid the rest of the embezzled money. She thinks she can cut a deal, I said. She might get a few years knocked off for cooperation, Miller admitted. But she's going away, Meredith. Conspiracy to commit murder? She's looking at 20 years, minimum. I watched Jessica wipe her nose on her sleeve. I remembered how she used to look at my house with envy. I remembered her touching my things, asking about the price of my jewelry. She had wanted my life so badly. Well, I said softly. She wanted to be Mrs. Sterling. Now she gets to share his fate. I hope it was worth it. I turned away from the glass. I didn't need to say anything to her. Her punishment wasn't my words, it was her irrelevance. She was nothing to me now. Just a bad memory that would fade. My phone rang. It was Joyce. Meredith? Her voice was tight. It's done, Joyce. They have both of them. Keith is in custody. Jessica is in custody. And Toby? I'm coming to get him now. Good, Joyce said, and I heard the crack in her voice. Because your father. I think Langston is smiling somewhere right now. You did good, kid. You did real good. Leaving the precinct, I walked out into the Chicago afternoon. The air smelled of exhaust and rain, but to me, it smelled like freedom. I had no house. I had no husband. My bank accounts were frozen pending the investigation. But I was alive. My son was alive. And for the first time in a decade, the path ahead of me wasn't paved by a man who wanted to control me. It was unpaved, rough, and entirely mine. The trial took place 6 months later. It was the sensation of the Chicago suburbs. The real estate tycoon and the arson plot. The tabloids ate it up. They ran photos of the burnt house, photos of Keith in his orange jumpsuit, photos of Jessica looking haggard in court. But I didn't hide. I walked into that courtroom every single day with my head held high. I wore my best suits. I sat in the front row. I wanted Keith to see me. I wanted him to see that he hadn't broken me. Keith pleaded not guilty, of course. His arrogance wouldn't let him admit defeat. He hired a flashy defense attorney who tried to paint me as the mastermind, the scorned wife who framed her husband. But the evidence was overwhelming. When I took the stand, the defense attorney tried to rattle me. "Mrs. Sterling, isn't it true that you have a background in accounting? Isn't it true you could have forged those ledger entries?" I leaned into the microphone. "I could have," I said calmly. "But I couldn't have forged the GPS data from Keith's burner phone. I couldn't have forged the text messages sent to the hitman while I was supposedly sleeping. And I certainly couldn't have forged the voice recording of my husband holding a knife to my throat in Millennium Park." The jury looked at Keith. He was glaring at me, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth would shatter. Then came the audio. Detective Miller played the tape from the park. "I was saving you from them. I was going to use the insurance money to start over, for me. And Jessica." The courtroom went silent. You could hear a pin drop. It was the sound of a man digging his own grave with his tongue. Then, they played the testimony of Marcus, the hitman. He had flipped immediately in exchange for a plea deal. He described how Keith had given him the key. How Keith had laughed about roasting the pig. When the verdict came down, I held Joyce's hand. "We find the defendant, Keith Sterling, guilty on all counts." Guilty. 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 The judge didn't hold back. "Mr. Sterling, your crimes are not only legally repugnant but morally bankrupt. You attempted to murder your own child for money. You are a danger to society." Keith was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Jessica, for her cooperation, got 25 years. As the bailiffs hauled Keith away, he stopped and looked at me. He looked smaller now. The expensive suits were gone. The confidence was gone. He looked like what he was, a desperate, sad little man. "Meredith," he called out. "Meredith, please." I didn't answer. I didn't even blink. I looked right through him, to the exit sign above the door. When I walked out of the courthouse, the press was waiting. Microphones were shoved in my face. "Mrs. Sterling, how do you feel? Do you have a statement?" I stopped. I adjusted my coat. "My name," I said clearly into the cameras, "is Meredith Vance. Not Sterling. And I feel like I finally woke up." I got into Joyce's car where Toby was waiting in the back seat. He was coloring in a book. He looked up and smiled, a real smile, one that reached his eyes. "Is the bad man gone, Mama?" he asked. "Yes, baby," I said, climbing in and hugging him. "He's gone forever. He can never hurt us again." Toby nodded, satisfied. "Good. Can we get ice cream now?" I laughed, and tears finally spilled over. Not tears of sadness, but of relief. "Yes," I said. "We can get all the ice cream you want." The end of the trial wasn't the end of the pain. Hollywood movies end at the verdict, real life continues into the messy aftermath. The first year was hard. Toby had nightmares. He would wake up screaming that the floor was hot, that the smoke was coming. I spent countless nights rocking him, singing the lullabies I thought he had outgrown, telling him over and over, "You are safe. I am here. The door is locked." We went to therapy, both of us. My therapist, Dr. Evans, helped me unpack the decade of gaslighting. I had to learn how to trust my own perception of reality again. For so long, Keith had told me the sky was green, and I had nodded. Now, I had to learn to look up and see the blue for myself. Financially, it was a battle, but a victorious one. With the criminal conviction, the insurance company voided Keith's claim but honored the payout for the house fire to me, as the innocent spouse. It wasn't $5 million, but it was enough to buy a small, sturdy house in a different town, far away from the North Shore snobs. I also went after the trust. Joyce filed a civil suit to reclaim the money Keith had embezzled. We recovered about half of it from the offshore accounts Jessica had revealed. It was enough to secure Toby's future. But the biggest healing came from the simplest things. One Saturday morning, about a year after the fire, I was in the kitchen making pancakes. Toby was sitting at the table, drawing. "What are you drawing, bud?" I asked. "A house," he said. My heart tightened. He used to draw our old house burning. "Can I see?" He held it up. It was a drawing of our new house, the small bungalow with the yellow door. But he had drawn something extra. Around the house, he had drawn a giant, shimmering bubble. "What's the bubble?" I asked. "It's a force field," Toby said seriously. "Nothing bad can get in. Not fire. Not bad men. Just us." I hugged him, burying my face in his neck so he wouldn't see me cry. "It's a beautiful force field, Toby." I went back to work, too. Not as a meek assistant, but as a CPA. I opened my own boutique firm specializing in forensic accounting for women going through high-conflict divorces. I called it Vance Financial Forensics. My first client was a woman named Sarah. She sat in my office, trembling, telling me she didn't know where her husband's money went, that he told her she was crazy for asking. I reached across the desk and took her hand. "You're not crazy, Sarah," I told her. "And we're going to find every single penny. I promise you." The look in her eyes, that spark of hope, was worth more than any paycheck. I was turning my trauma into a weapon to protect others. I was becoming the person my father always knew I could be. Joyce officially retired and became Auntie Joyce to Toby. She came over for Sunday dinners, bringing her caustic wit and expensive wine. We didn't talk about Keith. He was a ghost, fading a little more each day. We were building a new life. It wasn't perfect. I still checked the locks 3 times a night. I still flinched when a man raised his voice. But it was ours. It was real. And it was honest. Today marks 5 years since the night at the airport. 5 years since a whisper changed everything. I'm sitting on the porch of our yellow bungalow. The garden is blooming, hydrangeas and roses that I planted with my own hands. No landscapers. Just me and the dirt. Toby is 11 now. He's tall, gangly, with a mess of curly hair. He's in the driveway, playing basketball with the neighbor's kid. "Watch the shot, Mom," he yells. He shoots. It misses the hoop entirely and bounces into the flower bed. "Terrible," I yell back, laughing. "Stick to math." "Hey!" He laughs, chasing the ball. He's happy. He's normal. The shadows in his eyes are gone, replaced by the light of a childhood reclaimed. He knows what his father did. We don't keep secrets, but it doesn't define him. He isn't Keith Sterling's son. He is Toby Vance. He wants to be an architect, ironically. But he says he wants to build safe places. Schools. Libraries. Shelters. My phone buzzes. It's a text from a client. We got the court order. He has to pay back everything. Thank you, Meredith. You saved my life. I smile and put the phone down. I think about the woman I was 5 years ago. That scared, tired woman standing in Terminal 3. I want to go back and hug her. I want to tell her, it's going to be hell, but you're going to walk through the fire and come out made of gold. We often think that tragedy destroys us. And it does. It burns down the structures we thought were permanent. But the foundation? The foundation remains. And on that foundation, you can build something stronger. Something fireproof. I learned that we are not defined by the people who betray us. We are defined by how we survive them. I learned that a mother's intuition is a superpower. And I learned that sometimes, the most terrifying moment of your life, the moment you realize you can't go home, is actually the moment you finally start heading towards your true home. Toby runs up to the porch, sweaty and grinning. Mom, can we order pizza? Malik wants to stay for dinner. Only if you set the table, I say. Deal. He runs inside, the screen door slamming behind him, a sound that used to make me jump, but now just sounds like life. I take a sip of my coffee and look at the setting sun. The sky is streaked with orange and pink. It looks a bit like fire, but I'm not afraid of it anymore. I survived the fire. Now, I'm just enjoying the warmth. That is my story. It's a story about betrayal, yes, but mostly it's a story about the strength we don't know we have until we are forced to use it. If you've ever felt silenced, if you've ever felt like you were living in a house of cards, I hope my story gives you hope. You are stronger than you think. You are smarter than they give you credit for. And you are never, ever alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being my witness. If this story touched you, please share it. You never know who needs to hear that there is life after the fire. Stay safe, stay strong, and trust your gut. Until next time. And so, this story leaves us with a powerful reminder: resilience is not born from ease, but from the trials that challenge us to our core. Meredith's journey is a testament to the strength we often underestimate within ourselves. It shows us that even in the darkest moments, even when the world seems to collapse around us, we have the power to rise, to rebuild, and to reclaim our lives. Her courage wasn't just about surviving, it was about standing tall, facing fear head-on, and refusing to let betrayal define her. This story also sheds light on the importance of trusting our instincts and valuing our self-worth. Too often, we silence that inner voice out of fear, doubt, or the need to keep the peace. But Meredith's story teaches us that listening to that voice can save us, not just from danger, but from losing ourselves. It's a lesson in self-belief, in knowing that we are stronger, smarter, and braver than we think. Now, it's your turn to reflect. What does resilience mean to you? Have you ever faced a moment where you had to stand up for yourself, even when it felt impossible? Share your thoughts below, or simply comment good if this story inspired you. Let's keep the conversation going and remind each other that we are never truly alone.